Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I am Lauren Bercier, and this is Laken Swan, and we are the co-founders of Something Borrowed Blooms. Our company, Something Borrowed Blooms, specializes in premium silk flowers that we rent out to couples for the weekend of their wedding all across the U.S., saving them over 70% compared to fresh flower costs. Over the last 8 years, Laken and I have been on a mission to revolutionize the wedding flower industry, and we've made some progress to that. In fact, we've served over 40,000 weddings to date. So today, Laken and I are going to talk to you about how we've accomplished that.
Yeah, so definitely share with you guys how we've gotten here, but also just insight into how we've balanced family and business, along with just the journey as co-founders. So just a little bit of background on Lauren and I. We're actually first cousins. Our dads are brothers. We grew up extremely close. We've stayed close throughout our adult life, and that's kind of what led us here. But Lauren, why don't you take us back to where you were personally before starting Something Borrowed Blooms?
Yeah, it's so crazy to look back on because it's really not that long ago, but it feels like a totally different life. So right before we started our company, I was actually at a phase where I was a stay-at-home mom. I had 2 babies under 2. My husband is also a serial entrepreneur, and so I found myself very interested in the businesses he was starting in. It was the first time I was really being exposed to entrepreneurship and what that meant. So I saw the highs and the lows. Trust me, there are lows. But really, it kind of hit me one day. I was like, wait, if he can do it, we can do it. So, and that's really when we kind of had this conversation, like, wait, we want to start a business of our own. So, Laken, I know that was like my experience, but you were in a little bit of a different spot. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was definitely in a different spot, but some similarity. So I also, like Lauren, had 2 young kids at home. And noticed what her husband was doing and really being inspired by like this concept of, kind of building your own destiny. But from a career perspective, I was working in the corporate space. I had a demanding job as a marketing executive, progressive roles within leadership, which took a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I was reaching the point in my career where I was like at that 10-year kind of like burnout fatigue. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And realizing how much time and energy I was putting into this large corporation, and really wondering, like, what would happen if I put this much time, energy, and effort into myself or into something that I was building that would provide more value to my family over time. And, that thought and that kind of shared aspiration that we both had of like defining our own destiny, being a bigger player and contributor to our family is kind of our common goal.
Right.
And that's really kind of what led us to our journey together as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So let's jump into a little bit of like how we got started, what that looked like.
Yeah. So a lot of times people ask us like, oh, were you a florist or were you in the wedding industry? And the answer is no and no. So really, we had one thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to start a business together. That was it. And then it was like, okay, what kind of business? It's like, okay, here are the key factors. We wanted to do something that was different, that no one had ever done before, and that was revolutionary and going to really shake up a stagnant market. And that's when the brainstorming conversation started to begin. And so we were, bouncing off different ideas for several months, really. We were kind of like thinking of different things. And it was also when Rent the Runway was gaining a lot of popularity, and I was like an early adopter, big fan. In fact, I'm in Rent the Runway today. And I just thought that concept was genius, that you could rent this high-ticket dress or whatever item it was for the weekend, pay a fraction of the cost, send it back. And so I was really enthralled with this like circular economy concept. And that was really like it influenced us, I guess, because I was like, this is amazing. How can we take that concept and apply it to something else? And then Laken.
Yeah, so Lauren was definitely very in tune to what was happening in the circular economy, and that was piquing my interest. So, I'm going about my day-to-day life just taking note of things that were happening around and kind of where that concept could be applied. And it was at that time of life where I felt like I was going to weddings every other weekend, and definitely noticed a trend of, couples, just the financial commitment involved with a wedding, this was, need to, try to either fund the wedding, find ways to save money in the wedding. And a lot of times that fell in the department of florals. And that's really when these kind of two areas collided, wedding flowers and the circular economy. And that was our ticket. That was what we were going to pursue. Getting started was definitely not perfect. I am appreciative that both Lauren and I were very much aligned and that we were going to value progress over perfection. And we knew that day one was not going to be pretty and it was not going to be ideal, but we were committed to the long run. So again, we were in very different positions. Lauren was a stay-at-home mom. She had a little bit more time on the day-to-day. I had less time on the day-to-day, but I had experience in developing a strategy and bringing something, a marketing strategy to life. So we definitely played different aspects in getting started. And I know a lot of the time and effort in the beginning fell really hard on Lauren. But what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think that, in the early stages of startups, whatever, if you're with a co-founder or not, those early days are scary. There's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know if your efforts are going to pay off. And it's just it's an unsettling kind of time, And I think that what got us through that, honestly, was our family bond. The fact that we had so much mutual trust and that we were both willing to sacrifice in different ways. But really, when I'm sacrificing, I know that I'm sacrificing, of course, for my benefit, but I'm also sacrificing, for Laken. And that's part of it. And, I think a lot of times people think about going into business with family is a risk. But for us, I think that's honestly been one of our biggest strengths. And that really has got us through that early phase. It's gotten us to where we are today, where we've served over 40,000 weddings across the U.S. and Canada. We're growing a team. Our team is amazing. We have over 40 people on staff now. And, it's kind of gotten us through these phases. And so as we went from that, early startup, I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to figure it out, to, your business starts to grow and scale and it becomes this thing of its own. It starts requiring more of everything. You need more resources, more time, more skills, more talent, more money, more of us. And so that's when we kind of had to shift and start really honing in on our individual strengths and getting really clear on okay, who's good at what and who's going to lead which aspect of the company so that we could take that and run with it and almost divide and conquer.
Yep. So that led to a lot of just open, real, raw conversations, lots of self-awareness, but in identifying each other's strengths and really being transparent and aligned on what that looked like. So, Lauren is an extrovert. She is fantastic when it comes to being a spokesperson for the brand. She's great at building investor relationships as well as motivating our team and building a culture that we're really proud of. So it was natural that she was going to serve as CEO and we were going to lie on her strengths there because honestly, those are all things that make me break out in a sweat. So
Yeah, and then on the flip side, Laken she's more introverted, but she's more thoughtful in her approach, which is a huge benefit as we're building our strategy. If it were up to me, I'd be jumping at every shiny thing that comes our way, and she's hold on, let's think about this, which is good, right? We have to balance each other out. And so it makes us stop and think okay, is this actually in line with what our ultimate goals are for the company? So we balance each other in that way. And then like she said, I'm the talking head, right? So I'm the spokesperson, the one you'll definitely see more of for the brand, but that doesn't mean that Laken's actually the one behind the scenes helping me craft the perfect message so that way when I am out and executing and delivering these messages, I'm feeling really confident about what we're saying and how we're saying it because we've had this conversation and I'm if Laken signed off on it, this is solid. So that's how we just really work to help each other in those ways.
I think another key to our success as being co-founders is being really in tune to each other's emotional state. And this is important whether you have a co-founder or applying this to your leadership team or others that you are working very closely with. But I like to simplify this as saying know when to step up or when to step back. And you're going to have a point in time where, you play a role in each of those situations. But I can notice whenever Lauren is at a point where she's at her low and she needs me to come in and motivate, re-energize, maybe take on some of her workload and just carry her to the next phase of the emotional journey. And on the flip side, also being in tune to like what it looks like when someone is experiencing just like this extreme passion about a project, an area of focus, whatever it might be. Because in those instances, sometimes instead of fighting that energy, you got to step back, take the passenger seat, play that supporting role, and really ride that wave of that emotional kind of high that they're, pulling the business on. So again, like really being in tune to that is super important. It's easier for us just because of our history, but again, I think it applies to any partnership or anyone that you work closely with on a day-to-day basis.
Yep, absolutely. So just like any relationship, there will be highs and lows. I think that, people often talk about the life of a founder can feel very isolating. They compare it to being on an island. And so I would just say, like, if you have a co-founder, it shouldn't feel like a burden, right? It should be a blessing. But part of that is like really making sure that you're investing the time into that relationship to really make it work for the benefit of both of you and ultimately the company. So it's like open communication, identifying those strengths, and then ultimately working together to achieve the goal that you originally set out to achieve. So again, I feel so lucky to have Laken as my co-founder, and I hope you have someone in your corner that you feel really lucky to have too. So I think that's it for us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.